the Thursday, October 1st, 2020 meeting of the Santa Fe City Planning Commission. I'm Jack Hyde, Chairman, and we're grateful that all of you would take your time tonight to join us. Let's start with the roll call, please. Melissa?
Chair Hyatt.
Here.
Vice Chair Hogan.
He's excused.
Thank you. Commissioner Clow.
Present.
Commissioner Faulkner. Commissioner Garcia.
He's excused.
Okay. Commissioner Gutierrez.
Here.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Here.
Commissioner Satania.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll move to the agenda. I understand there's a change from staff. Mr. Burke?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Commissioners. There is a change from staff. We are asking to postpone case 220-2499 and case 2020-2592, which are cases 1 and 2 on the printed agenda. They are being postponed to the next meeting of October 15th. And that is the only changes that are from staff.
Okay. Are there any changes from the commissioners? All right, hearing none, may I entertain a motion, please?
Motion to approve with changes. This is Commissioner Lawrence.
Thank you. Second from somebody?
Second. This is Commissioner Satania.
Thank you. Melissa?
Yes. Commissioner Clow.
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes.
Commissioner Satania.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
All right, we'll move to the minutes for August 6th and August 20th. Are there any changes from staff on either of those? First of all, let me just ask Melissa, did you
Yes.
get my changes, ma'am?
Yes, I did, and they've been, I turned them into staff.
All right, thank you very much. Any changes from staff?
Chair, Commissioners, there's no changes from staff.
Any changes from the commission? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Lawrence.
Second to Commissioner Clow.
Melissa?
Commissioner Clow.
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence.
Yes.
Commissioner Satania.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Now moving to old business, commissioners, I'd like to take a matter that didn't appear. If you would please unmute Mr. Romero, Noah.
John, you can unmute yourself.
Oh, I think he's there. Are those your dogs, John?
No, that wasn't me.
All right.
That was
Commissioner
me.
Gutierrez. John, I want to take a moment personally to thank you for the years of service, not just while I've been on the Planning Commission, but also when I was the Land Use Director. I found your advice to be very, very helpful. Not only your professional acumen and advice, but also you weighed into the personal side from time to time and gave opinions, and I was really grateful for all of that. And I want to tell you that I will personally miss you, and I wish you the very best. I wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you for all those 42 years of service.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Burke?
Yep, thank you, John, for everything you've done. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I'm excited for your new path.
Thank you very much.
Any other commissioners wish to speak?
Mr. Chair.
I'd also like to thank John. We only overlapped with you in your position and me as director for a short time, but I really appreciate your professionalism and dedication to the Planning Commission during that time. we wouldn't have been able to discuss and review and ultimately approve the very important projects we've been able to approve over these past months without your participation. So thank you very much, John. Best of luck in all your future endeavors, and please stay in touch.
Commissioner Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John, I've been on the commission for a while, and it's always been with you directing us on traffic. And it's been one of those things where sometimes it feels like you may have a thankless job from the outside looking in. People disagreeing with your professional opinions and everything, but I really appreciate you giving it to us straight and telling us how it was, and not cutting any corners. I think you led the city in a good direction. Best of luck to you on the future endeavors, and there's going to be big shoes to fill, whoever may take your place. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian.
And Noah, will you make sure you get the gold watch to John, please?
Yes. I think we should, I hope that the mayor names a day after John Romero for all the years of service in the meetings.
I'm
done
sure he will.
I think he deserves like a really nice street.
A
Yeah.
street, yeah, there, or a bridge or something, yeah.
I want a plaque in the in that media room there at council chambers, because a lot of times I'd be sitting in there waiting for my item to come on.
Well, we'll see what we can do, John. You sure deserve it. You've been so helpful to me, taught me so much. One of the most helpful, knowledgeable people I've worked with at the city. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, guys. No, I really appreciate it. You know what? Planning Commission was the first body that I ever presented to, went in front of. And, you know, it was probably like 15 years ago when I first went in front of Planning Commission, and I was a nervous wreck, sweating. It was awful. And so Planning Commission is the one that broke me in. If it wasn't for Planning Commission, I wouldn't have as much confidence as I do now.
Well, we're glad we could bring you along, John. Thanks again and good luck. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll move to the formal agenda now. That's the end of old business, and that has nothing to do with John's age. We'll move to new business, and we're on case 3, which is now case 1. This is case 2020-2500, 1620 Alafria Street, Romero Preliminary Subdivision. And Mr. Logston.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I forgot. Go ahead, Brian.
No problem. Thank you. On this case, Mr. Chair, the previous case, the Dos Ezequias that came up, I did recuse myself from that case, mainly because I lived on the street that was encompassed in part of this case. I don't feel as there is any conflicts tonight for this case with me. I'd like to put it out for you and the commissioners to decide, but it's up to you all. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, unless there's an objection, I'm satisfied by Commissioner Gutierrez's representation would allow him to participate in this case. Is there any objection? All right, hearing none. Commissioner Gutierrez, you're empowered to stay with us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to correct, I did look back through my emails, and Commissioner Hogan or Vice Chair Hogan did actually ask to be excused from this meeting.
Yeah, I thought I saw that email from him too.
Yeah. Just
All right.
wanted to let you know.
Thank you. Mr. Logston.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I trust everybody can see my screen right now. This is case 2020-2500, 1620 Agua Fria Street, Romero Preliminary Subdivision. Excuse me. Dolores Vigil of Liaison Planning Services is the agent for Carlos and John Romero, the owners, requesting approval of a preliminary subdivision plat for 7 single-family residential lots at 1620. It's currently zoned R5, and it's approximately 1.47 acres. It is a small subdivision. The basic plan is to create, there's an existing home on the lot. They're going to create 6 new building lots, and then it will carve off a lot for the existing home, and then it will carve off a lot that serves as drainage for the Dos Ezequias subdivision, which is adjacent to it. I'm going to try some rapid fire screen juggling here if I can get the Zoom window out of the way. Oops. Do you see a Google overlay pic?
Yes.
You do, okay. Whoops, I just stopped. Okay, so this is what the subdivision looks like. It's by the way, 1620 Agua Fria Street, just so I'm not juggling too many screens. As you know, that's near the Mandela School. The Mandela School is just off screen right here. At any rate, this is the existing home. These would be the 6 new building lots and the drainage facility for Dos Acequias. And I just want to quickly show one more picture. And this will be this one, and we can certainly come back to these as Dolores talks and as we take questions and so forth, but this is how it relates to Dos Acequias, which is probably one of the hardest things to envision and hard thing to illustrate, but this is the new street Prudencio that will be built as part of the Dos Acequias project. And I put this thing this came out of Dolores's subdivision packet, actually. This shows how the new lots will relate to the Dos Acequias phase 1 lots. So all of these lots will access Prudencio, including the existing home at the top. And one concern that was raised during the ENN was, or I'll just say a topic that came up during the ENN was the fact that during the Dos Acequias approval, they had dedicated this little bit of right of way. In discussions with John Romero and with the applicant, we will be and have conditioned on approval building a deceleration lane here. It'll be short, but it will be for eastbound traffic to turn into Dos Acequias, and that is how these homes will access the lot. I'll leave it at that because Dolores, will have something to say about this. We can come back to questions, but staff recommendation is to approve the subdivision, and you'll find findings of fact and motions in your packet. So I'll stop there.
All right, thank you. Ms. Vihil.
Unmuted.
All right, Melissa, will you swear her, please?
Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Dolores Vihil, P.O. Box 1835, Santa Fe, New Mexico 87504.
Thank you.
Good evening, and it's good to see everybody. And I'm here representing the Romero family on this project. And incidentally, there's 3 John Romeros, I think, that are going to be joining us. One, of course, is our city engineer who's leaving, which I will miss because we've worked a lot on many, many different projects, and I appreciate your service, John. And I wish you good luck in your next endeavor. Also, 2 of the applicants are named John Romero. One is senior and one is junior. One goes by Chris Romero. And so I think they might be in the waiting room, and I'm not sure if Noah wants to maybe bring them in or how that works, but
Are they going to speak during your presentation?
they may speak, they may want to speak, just to,
right.
let you know that
All right,
they're here and they appreciate everything you guys do.
Great.
Also, we have, there we are. There's Christopher, who's John Romero, but he goes by Chris. He's here. And then also his father, John Romero, is down on the corner. He's here if you have any questions for him. Also, we have Eric, who's supposed to be here. Eric Cornelius. He's with Santa Fe Engineering. I don't see him here yet, but he's here to answer any questions. He's been involved with the Dos Acequias subdivision the whole way. And so I think it's important that we bring him in to answer any other detailed questions because he's been around dealing with that subdivision and all those. There he is. and all those questions that we have as far as traffic and engineering is concerned. I just want to state for the record that the applicant has reviewed all the conditions, and we are in agreement with all the recommendations. We're also have been working with Dos Acequias and the developer there in coming up with a design that works for both properties. As Lee had stated, we will be accessing the lots off of Prudencio and instead of Agua Fria. And also lot 1, the existing lot, will be accessed off of Prudencio also. That was a recommendation that we got from the city engineer. So that's no problem. We have enough room to put in a driveway easement or a driveway cut onto Prudencio for that lot. Let's see. Also, I'd like to have a little bit of clarification as far as the decel lane and how that would affect this applicant. Whether it is stated that the applicant would have to build it out, or would they have to just provide a right of way? There's some clarification that needs to be addressed at this time. Other than that,
Mr. Logston, you want Mr. Logston to address your question?
Sure. And it's John's recommendation, and he's been part of it. So I think either one of them can answer the question, but other than that, I think we're ready to answer any questions you may have.
All right.
Certainly.
Before we go to the other people that you want to invite to speak, Mr. Logston, do you want to address that?
Yes, sure. And sorry if that was not clear enough in the way it was worded as a condition, but it was John Romero's recommendation and our intent that it is not only dedicated, but built.
And
Thank
who
And
pays for
likewise,
that?
Dos Acequias will be dedicating their portion so that it can be built, yes.
Who's going to pay for that?
John, maybe you can help me out, Mr. Chairman, but John and I discussed this briefly, and it certainly seems fair that the Dos Acequias developers would need to, but at the same time, it's not something we conditioned on them because at the time we didn't really know if this decel lane would ever be built. I think it's something that perhaps the applicant can negotiate with the Dos Acequias developers. I think it's reasonable to share that cost, but it is difficult for us at this point to go back and impose that cost on Dos Acequias post approval.
Okay. John, do you want to add anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, Lee explained it correctly. The intent is for this applicant to not only dedicate the needed right-of-way, but to construct it itself. Again, it is a fairly short decel lane, so it's not a substantial improvement from a cost standpoint.
All right. So Dolores, back to you for a moment. Unless there's something else, it sounds like you're on the hook for it unless you can negotiate something with Dos Acequias.
Yeah, I think that's what we understood, and I just wanted to have it clarified for the record.
All
I
right.
appreciate that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Mr. Romero Sr., do you wish to add anything, sir, to this presentation? If so, you'll need to be unmuted by Noah, and then you need to unmute yourself, sir.
Chair, I can't unmute him. He has to actually unmute.
Okay.
Christopher, do you want to add to anything, or do you think your dad wants to add anything?
I think I'm good. I appreciate everybody taking it into consideration. And thank you, Dolores, for getting that on the record. We will work with Dos Acequias.
Mr. Chair, I need to swear.
Hold on, Chris. You need to be sworn in. Melissa, swearing, please.
Yes, please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your full name and address for the record.
Full name is John Christopher Romero. My address is 632 Amherst Drive, Southeast, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87106.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that's good. I just wanted to say that, we were aware of the proposal and the recommendation for the decel lane. And I can appreciate that Dolores was getting that on the record, and we'll talk it through with Dos Acequias and, also with Eric and Dolores to make sure that, all the ducks are in a row for that part to go in as we proceed.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Dolores, is there anyone else?
No, there's not.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the opportunity for the public hearings portion of this particular case. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to testify either in favor of or against this project? If so, please identify yourselves by unmuting yourself and waving your hand at us. I see Ray Domenico, and if you will unmute him, please, Noah, let's see if Mr. Domenico wants to testify.
Chair, thank you. Ray, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, and then you'll have be sworn in, and then you'll be allowed to talk. So when I click this, you'll be asked to unmute yourself. So go ahead and unmute yourself right now.
Hi, please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Ray Domenico, 817 Osito Place, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87505.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ray.
Okay, rather than a statement, I just want you to know that there's quite a few of us here from Osito Place, and we have questions. So may we ask you our questions?
Well, let's do this in an orderly fashion, Ray. First of all, how many people are there?
I'm not sure.
Are you by yourself on your own computer?
Yeah, I'm by myself. I think there's probably about 6.
Okay. All right. Well, let me just say to you and to the others who may be on, we're going to limit your testimony to 2 minutes each, please. And Ms. Paez from the city attorney's office will keep track. And we're not trying to be rude. We're just trying to keep the thing moving along. So those of you also who want to testify, identify yourselves by raising your hand. And Noah, tell them how they can raise their hand in case they don't know.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the public, if you'd like to participate in the public comment portion, please look at the bottom of your screen. You'll be able to click raise hand function. You can click that and we'll be able to see you on our side, and then we'll call you by name. And then you'll be unmuted at that time and you'll be sworn in first. If you're calling in, which it doesn't look like anybody is, you can press *9. So I do see that some hands are raising, and we'll get to you after each person. And please be respectful of the 2-minute rule. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ray, the floor is yours, ma'am.
I would like to pass to Bill Buxbaum. He's going to ask the first question.
Well, let's see where Bill is.
Chair Hyatt, are we doing, I just want to make sure, are we?
No, she doesn't get to give her time. Bill will get 2 minutes as well.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead. Ray, you can go ahead and start speaking about.
Yeah, I don't see Bill on here, Ray. You better go ahead.
Well, it's just that the questions are kind of in an order that flows, and Bill's question would be at the beginning and mine would be closer to the end. So if Bill could start, that would, I think, be helpful for the process.
Let me just ask you, Ray, does Bill have another name? Because I don't see him on my list of attendees.
Mr. Chair, I think it's under Jane.
Jane.
Jane. Oh, Jane Bushbaum?
Yes.
All right, let's take Jane then. And thank you, Ray. Stand down for a second and take Jane. And Jane, did you hear all that? You ready to go?
Mr. Bushbaum, I'm going to go ahead and unmute you, or I'm going to allow you to talk. You'll have to unmute yourself right now. You'll be sworn in first, and then you'll be able to talk.
Please unmute your microphone. Thank you. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Jane Buxbaum. I live at 821 Osito Place, 87505. Is it correct that we are not on your screen? You can hear us, but you can't, we see you. We don't see ourselves up there at all.
Well, I don't see you, but I can hear you clearly.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
I have some confusion with this new suggestion. This is not exactly what Ray wanted me to say, but I have to say what I can say. You know, we have this larger Dos Ezequias project coming near us of 80-something houses. And over time, it was reduced to 60-something houses. I don't have that in front of me. Now we have a request to put back in 7 houses after it already, and it sounds like the Dos Ezequias project is just getting bigger. I have nothing against the John Romero group doing this, but it seems so strange that now they're coming in and the whole thing is getting to be a bigger project. Whether we call it the Romero part and the Dos Ezequias part, still the whole thing in our neighborhood is getting bigger, and maybe it'll even get bigger. It seems very hard to understand what's happening and why this was now brought upon us right before we went into what do we call it when you're in your house? What's it called? What?
The E&N?
I'm sorry, what?
The E&N meeting?
For 6.5 months. We
Oh.
haven't had a meeting and haven't had a chance to talk about all this.
All right.
But shortly before that happened, it came up a little bit in the last meeting that we actually attended, where I said the same thing and didn't get any answers. Not really. I think Dolores tried to answer it, but not really to our satisfaction. That's my major concern with this project, but I would like maybe a chance to talk again when we get to the drainage and water question in the back of Osito Place. And that's going to come up maybe a little bit later.
Well, Jane, this public hearing section, I need to take all of the comments at the same time, if you don't mind. So if you've got some comments about drainage, let's hear them.
Well, we got a letter. Some of us got a letter from a lawyer. It's quite a large letter saying that it's a very small Ezequiel Place behind the end. How do I explain where the house is? It's at the epitome of our circle, Osito Place, which leads right on into the development of Ezequias. There's a little bitty Ezequiel Madre place there. They're all full of shrubbery and stuff like that.
That is time.
Okay, Ms. Paez, I'm going to give her another 30 seconds because I was talking over her. Go ahead, please, Jane.
It was suggested by this lawyer. It was a rather long letter that was up to us as a unit called that we would get all the debris out of that little Ezequiel for the development. Well, you know, we are not a unit. Each one of us owns our own house. There's no association here. We only own the land that we're on. We're not a group. If we have to go back there and get all that stuff out, we can talk about it and maybe we would like to help in some way, but we don't see where this is our responsibility. It's a strange little part of land. If you see the map, it's behind our subdivision or our circle there, but it belongs to us. Well, there is no us. Each one of us is a person or 2 of us in each house. There is no us, there's no association.
All right.
That is time again.
Thank you, Jane. Appreciate it. All right, I see Jane Whitmore. Noah?
Thank you, Chair. Jane Whitmore, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. You'll have to unmute yourself, and then you'll be sworn in, and then your time will begin.
Press unmute.
Thank you. Yes. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
I'm Dr. Jane Whitmore. I live at 813 Osito Place, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87505.
Okay, Jane, go ahead.
I have 2 questions here. We're glad to see that the subdivision will create a deceleration lane on Agua Fria, but there is also a retention pond for the Dos Ezequias subdivision, also on Agua Fria. The maps don't show how they will both be positioned, as well as the repositioned driveway for the existing home on Agua Fria. Can you please describe how this will all function?
All right, Jane, I'm going to take your questions and then I'll address them later to Dolores. And in the meantime, could I have your second question, please?
Yes. Are there 2 lanes all the way to the end of Prudencio or only at the entrance to Agua Fria?
All right, I'll put those to her. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Jane?
No, that's it.
All right, thank you very much. Let's come back to Ray. first of all, let me just ask, oh, I see Anna Blythe.
And I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk, and then you'll be sworn in. You'll have to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Anna Bly, and I live at 836 Osito Place. And thank you again, commissioners, for hearing from us today. We appreciate this opportunity. As touched on by some of my other neighbors, when we worked or were part of the process in listening to the Dos Ezequias subdivision that was approved, drainage was a large concern. And again, my neighbors have touched on it a little bit this evening. Now that there's increased homes to that, will these developers work together to deal with those drainage issues and possibly have construction that's simultaneous around drainage? The other thing that I'd like to say around the drainage is after Dos Ezequias was approved, I think it was also touched on by my neighbors, there's still confusion around the undue impact, and it's a large impact. There's going to be significant work to the Acequia area of the Acequia Medio. Adding homes in the 1620 project will also add to that drainage issue. And we wondered why it seems difficult that this is being discussed now after an approval process for Dos Ezequias, because again, that's already a very significant project that's going to have significant impact to that Acequia. And there's still concerns, and it's just me reiterating points we've made previously about what happens downstream. This Acequia gets narrower as it goes. So Dos Ezequias has a pretty substantive, very substantive impact on the Acequia. And then as it passes by our homes, it gets much more narrow. What is the process? How does the Planning Commission work with the community to sort of ensure that the major impact of the subdivision of Dos Ezequias with the additional 7 homes, what that impact can really look like, and who is responsible for it, and how does this work, and you know, how do we protect our existing properties before these new ones come in? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Appreciate it. And so now we come back to Ray. I don't see anybody else. Do you know?
Mr. Chair, I do not. I'm going to go ahead and Ray, I'm going to allow you to talk again. I don't think you need to be sworn back in. Just unmute your mic, and your 2 minutes will begin after that.
I don't think you need to be sworn either, Ray. Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm going to try to ask all the questions for the people who aren't here, because we were expecting to be later on the agenda. In the cities, well, first of all, please clarify all the players involved in this project. The Romero brothers own the land. What is the role of liaison planning? What is the role of John Reeder from GeoPark LLC? Are any of these parties associated with Nick Larrick? Next question. In the city's review criterion 2 states there's no problem with health, safety, and welfare of this project. We want to state that traffic on Agua Fria is already a hazard with the Dos Ezequias subdivision. Adding more homes will contribute to that. There is another subdivision in the approval process directly on the north side of Agua Fria. Adding those plus the 1620 homes and the Dos Ezequias subdivision and the school, all within a few feet of each other, will significantly reduce health, safety, and welfare of the Agua Fria area. Next question, criteria 4 states that any nonconformity should not create more nonconformity. Code states that 1 entrance for up to 29 homes is required. Dos Ezequias will have 68 homes and 1620 will have an additional 6. That is 75 homes with only 1 24/7 open entrance. There will be 2 fire gates in the Dos Ezequias subdivision, but they will only be opened in an emergency. 1620 is definitely adding to the nonconformity that Dos Ezequias created. Let's see. Next question. Will there
Ray,
be-
let me stop you for just a minute, please.
Okay.
Sally and commissioners, I'm gonna give Ray an additional 2 minutes because we moved them up on the agenda and some of those people may not be there. So without objection, I'd like to add another 2 minutes to Ray. Is that all right? All right. Ray, we're gonna give you an additional 2 minutes to make all the arguments that you can make for all the folks that aren't there, okay?
And we just got to the 2, so there'll be a full 2 starting when you speak again.
Okay, Ray, go ahead.
Okay, next. Will there be street parking on both sides of Prudencio? Next question, will the 1620 homes have driveways on Prudencio that will go for access onto Prudencio? Where will there be additional parking for guests for both 1620 and Dos Acequias? The next is, when is groundbreaking and construction expected? Will it be coordinated with Dos Acequias' 3 phases? Next, it is concerning that the school has not replied or provided comment because they are directly impacted. There was a lot of confusion during the Dos Acequias approval process, and we recommend that the school get involved in this immediately. Boy, I'm looking at this and I think, oh no, there's 2 more. In the city's review, criterion 2 states there's, oh no, I already said that. Okay, I think that's it, Chairman. Thank you very much for the time.
Oh, thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. Let's just double check. Oh, I see John Pitts. Would you unmute John, please, Noah?
Yep, John, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. Please unmute yourself. You'll be sworn in and your 2 minutes will begin.
Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is John Pitts, 941 Nicole Place, 87505.
Go ahead, John. John, the floor is yours, sir.
Mr. Pitts, you can go ahead and begin speaking.
Mr. Pitts, did you want to address the commission, sir? Did we lose him?
Sure, he's still there. His connection might not be good, but that doesn't actually, oh, there you go.
There you go, John.
Are they going to build extra homes?
Oh, the question is, are there plans for additional homes to be built on these 7 new lots? Or are they just single-family residences?
All right. Is
That's
that your
question 1. I have another question.
Go ahead.
If I may, Chairman. The point has already been made about the construction of new houses leading onto Agua Fria after the construction of Dos Acequias. It's like the straw that broke the camel's back, and I agree with those people. We need additional traffic study. I believe I would inquire about this with Lee previously and told this is just too small a group of houses. What difference does it make? Well, it does make a difference because they're all being funneled onto an already dangerous highway situation. It could impact not only the residents in the neighborhood, but also people using that as a major commuting thoroughfare. So I would like to find out if there's a feasibility of just adding on to the traffic study that was made before for Dos Acequias and just add on that additional traffic from this new development, as well as the one from across the street, which is also being considered.
And the school traffic.
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pitts. I see no other hands raised. Let me just ask, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to testify in this public hearing? If so, raise your hands, please. All right, seeing no hands raised, then we'll close the public hearing. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for all of your testimony. As we progress through this hearing now, there is not an opportunity for you to come back and ask more questions. And so if we don't cover it, I apologize. If we do cover it and you need additional information, it's not going to come in this hearing, but we're going to have a discussion now with the applicant and Dolores. This is my proposal, Dolores. First of all, let me ask you a question that is on my mind. Is there any connection between the Romero family and the applicants from Dos Ezequias?
No, there is not.
All right, and then to Jane, the first Jane's questions about drainage. Did you understand those questions and are you prepared to answer those?
I did, and what I'd like to do, Mr. Chair, is I've got a list of the questions and I've written them down, and those that I can answer, I'd like to answer.
Okay.
And those that I can't, I would defer them to our engineer, Eric Cornelius.
Okay.
But if I may, I'd like to begin with answering a few of the questions that I heard that I can answer.
Let me just first say, particularly to Ray, Ray, there's a couple of things that we're not going to be able to answer. We have no reason, we don't have an understanding why the school doesn't answer. They rarely answer. And so often, you know, it's in the ordinance that we have to ask them and they don't have to respond. It would be helpful if they did, but they haven't, and I'm not sure we can answer that question. We'll leave that up to Dolores. The other questions that several of you raised about the new project across the street from of Agua Fria, I'm not sure we can tell you that. I don't know anything about that project, and I don't know if any of the other commissioners do, but we'll hear from Noah and maybe he'll know some more. But all right, Dolores, if you'd like to proceed, go ahead, please.
I'd like to explain that the Romero family has owned this property for many, many generations. And when they came to me with their proposal to subdivide their land, we had first thought of maybe doing a family transfer, but that, you know, that was not in the works because of how the property actually needs to be developed for the amount of lots that we're proposing. It makes more sense to work with the developer who's already putting in the streets, and also to lessen the traffic onto Agua Fria and putting in these driveways onto Prudencio. So that's our involvement with the developer, and that's the only involvement we have, and that's to make this a cohesive area that's developed so that we can hopefully lessen the amount, not necessarily lessen the amount of traffic, but not to put all the traffic directly onto Agua Fria. And so that's the involvement right now. And also there is involvement in the drainage and the ponding that has been mentioned, the drainage on the lot behind lot 7 to the south. That big area will be used for both subdivisions in a cohesive way that was designed by an engineer that makes sense for both properties. So honestly, I mean, this has only come together because it makes more sense to do so. But as far as them being in cahoots or together on this project, that is not the case at all. Also, putting this design together and working out the small details that need to go through the process in order for this to be approved, it made more sense to just continue working with the neighboring development and moving forward. And if you have any more questions as far as that's concerned, the applicants are here to answer them in detail. And let's see, the other question, is there parking? Yes, the parking will be on the property. It's required by code that we have at least 2 parking spaces. These lots are larger than required. They're over 5,000 square feet, so there's enough parking on the property itself. These will be single family homes. They are allowed a guest home, or what do we call ADUs now these days? They are allowed, but other than that, I mean, they are slated for single family homes. No, nothing other than that. Let's see what else.
Street parking.
There is some street parking. I believe, Eric, it's on Prudencio, and it's only on one side of the street. I think it's on the west side of the street. I believe that because it is and will be a dedicated street, that these property owners will be able to share it. And so it will be a public thoroughfare with on-street parking.
Driveways.
Driveways, the driveways will meet city standards and will go on to Prudencio as designed in our application. And all of the lots will be accessed off of Prudencio and not Agua Fria as we previously had designed. But as a recommendation by the city engineer, he would like to see us redesign it and have all the driveways onto Prudencio directly.
Okay, what was Eric's last name, please?
Cornelius.
Okay, we're gonna hear from him in a minute. But also, Anna was talking about how the drainage narrows near her house. I assume that was all taken into consideration.
Yes, and Mr. Cornelius will be able to answer that. He was the designer. Oh, one more thing. The players. I wanted to say that John Reeder is not part of this application. I believe he was the traffic engineer, but that's not required. So he is not part of this application. The players are liaison planning, who is me. I'm the land planning consultant. And we have Eric Cornelius, who is the traffic and drainage engineer, not the traffic engineer, but the drainage engineer and grading and drainage engineer. And David Cooper, who is our surveyor, he's also part of the team. And then the applicants are the Romero family. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And does the Prudencio is that 2 lanes the whole way?
I believe it is with a left turn lane, but Eric can answer that.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I can please, if you'd allow me.
Okay, sure.
I think that question was, I think I understood what they were asking. Yes, Prudencio is a 2-way street with parking on one side. I think what they were getting at was up where Prudencio meets Agua Fria, it widens to actually 3 lanes. So 1 lane in, a left turn lane and a right turn lane. And I think maybe there was some confusion there. What they were kind of asking is, does that continue the whole way through? It is a normal 2-way street. It just happens to have the right and left turn lanes at Agua Fria.
All right. Mr. Loxton, are there any other questions that came from the public that you want to address while I have you?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen briefly here to actually, I gotta get the map going here and share that. Just to kind of help people understand what these various drainage facilities are we're talking about. Okay, so here is the subject property. I just want to point out a few things that might help everybody wrap their head around what we're talking about. So the decel lane will do something like this. And I forget who asked, but somebody asked about, well, what about the pond up here? And Eric can confirm this. I did talk to Eric about this and Dos Equis people. And basically this thing was designed over capacity as it is. And the answer I got back from them is that it will be able to absorb any redesign that needs to be done for the decel lane. Moving south on the property, and I'd like to just make the point briefly that right now in its, just for everybody to kind of keep in mind, right now in its undeveloped state, none of this acreage, which totals, I think, nearly 13 when you take all of it, none of this has drainage facilities right now. Okay, so when we talk about developing it and what's that going to do to drainage, it's like we're actually accommodating drainage in a way that these properties don't have it accommodated right now. But this is what's often called the dry acequia, running across from the school property, runs across, let me back up just a little, runs across Dos Acequias. The Osito Place residents were talking about this portion right here. If you look on the Osito Place subdivision plat, that is in fact, or wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm pointing at the wrong spot. This part right here, if you look on the Osito Place subdivision, this is in fact their grading and drainage facilities. The runoff from Osito Place goes here. For Nicole Place, it goes here. When they talk about things narrowing, they're talking about past this point, I believe. So I just wanted to kind of show that because it might help people wrap their head around the various portions we're talking about. And then otherwise, let me see if I can. So I addressed the question about, how does the decel lane and the pond interact? How will they coordinate drainage? I mean, that's part of what I'm attempting to do here. And I think Eric can answer this best. But the point is that as each of these properties develop, they are accommodating drainage that right now is not being managed whatsoever. Additional parking for guests got addressed.
I'm not sure that was addressed. Would you just explain, please, what you had in mind?
All right, yeah, Dolores kind of touched on it. So the Romero subdivision, which we're talking about, they each have 2 off-street parking spaces. As far as their guests, as we all know, all over the city, some people gravel their yards and, a guest can just pull into the gravel. But Prudencio Street itself on the west side does have parallel parking incorporated.
Is that the west or the east that you're pointing at?
I'm sorry, the east. Thank you. And finally, I would like.
Let me ask you, Lee, do you know anything about the new subdivision on the north side?
I think Noah can answer that better than me, Mr. Chairman. As I understand it, that one was proposed and ENN'd, but it's unlikely to proceed. Noah, do you have a comment there?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you. And members of the public, thank you for your questions. I was just going to go ahead and say yes. The Land Use Department is reviewing an application for a 5 or 6 lot family lot transfer that will not access Agua Fria. Will actually access Paseo de la Conquistadora. And interestingly enough, I think the applicant's name is also John Romero. It's like the night of John Romero's. And then there's also another, if you were to go a little bit more north, there's another 4-lot subdivision off of Paseo de la Conquistadora that we have reviewed but have no application in. As far as other development along Agua Fria, there is and has been approved. There's an apartment complex that has obtained approvals but has not yet recorded it. I think that most people knew that as Blue Buffalo, but it's different now. That's down quite a ways. And then there is a 2-lot subdivision farther west down this road, southwest down this road. So directly across from this, there is no development other than that will be accessing Agua Fria, to answer your question.
All right, thank you. Eric, I think it's time for you, please. Do you see Eric?
Yeah, I'm here. Do you guys need
Hi,
me?
Eric. Would you be sworn, please?
Of course.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Name is Eric Cornelius. My address is 1599 South St. Francis Drive, Santa Fe, New Mexico, 87505.
Eric, did you hear the public testimony?
I did hear the public testimony.
Would you like to address any of those questions, please?
Yes, I would love to. And first off, I'd like to apologize. I forgot to put my last name when I signed in on Zoom. So it is Eric Cornelius.
Oh my God, that'll go on your permanent record.
Oh, sorry about that. So thank you, Chair. So I was writing down some of the questions as they came through. I'll try, hopefully I will get to all of them. So one of the questions was regarding Prudencio. It is designed as a city street. It will be dedicated to the city when Dos Acequias is done constructing. The classification of the roadway is a sub-collector with parking on one side. That is a City of Santa Fe standard street section that we are adhering to. With the exception of once we get to the intersection with Agua Fria for around 100 feet or so, we're widening the roadway to handle a right turn out and a left turn out. But no, those 2 lanes do not go all the way down. Once we get outside of the intersection, about 100 feet, we taper down to the standard city subcollector section. The parking is on one side. It will be on the east side of the road as designed. And I think that actually works out best for traffic in general, as Dos Acequias will have their driveways along the rear of their lots. So essentially along the east side of Dos Acequias, right next to the Mandela School. What that does is it allows parking to not interfere with any of the driveways that we're putting in on the Romero subdivision. The Romero driveways will access directly to Prudencio. So what this does is keep parking on one side of the street and allows the driveways on Romero to have free flow, free access without being blocked by parking. Okay, so let's see. The other question was the pond near Agua Fria. Yes, I did speak with Lee. I did speak with Dee Beingessner regarding this as well. The pond does have the capacity to handle it. It is a relatively small pond, but there's not very much drainage heading that direction. There is a hump in the road not too far from Agua Fria, so there's a minimal amount of drainage heading north. For the Romero subdivision, I would say there's only 1 or 2 lots that are draining to the north. The rest of them do drain to the south. So with that said, we have analyzed this pond now that there is a requirement to put in this right turn deceleration lane. It was not a requirement when we started this project. Therefore, that's why it's not showing up on our plans as submitted. Subsequent submittals will have the right turn deceleration lane shown, the pond modifications shown, and the revised driveway location for lot number 1 shown. So we analyzed this pond to verify that it does have capacity with some minor modifications, and these modifications will be reflected in an updated drainage report that will be submitted as part of any subsequent submittals on this project. Those are all free for the city to review as well, and the city provides their input. So just so you know, we do have capacity on that. Regarding drainage for the rest of the project, we are meeting all the terrain management and drainage requirements, as is Dos Acequias. Now, I was the engineer on Dos Acequias as well, so I am familiar with both projects and can speak confidently on both of them. Dos Acequias has a substantial amount of drainage infrastructure that was installed that far exceeds the city standards for drainage requirements. We also have adequate capacity for any sedimentation in the ponds as well to go ahead and handle that, so we won't lose any pond capacity if a storm washes sediment down from upstream, which we have no control over. Overall, there is actually, with Dos Acequias coming in, it will result in an overall reduction in peak stormwater discharge flowing down the acequia in question. And with the Romero subdivision coming in, it just further complements that drainage design. So overall, this will result in a reduction. One of the residents did state that, yes, there is a narrowing of this channel further downstream that is not on our property. We can't really do anything about that. The best we can do is make sure we slow down our water as much as possible to actually improve the situation compared to how it is in its current state today. Let me see, what else do we have here? And then, yes, these are 2 separate projects coming in. I do believe Dos Acequias is in the process of getting their grading and drainage permits now. I don't know how far along they are just yet. However, with winter coming up pretty soon, and with Dos Acequias hopefully breaking ground here very soon, and with the Romero project being pretty close to getting its approvals, there is a possibility, not a requirement, but there is a possibility that some of this construction can happen concurrently, which overall will reduce the construction time for both of these subdivisions. So that will be a benefit to the city and the surrounding public to go ahead and share with traffic control, share with utility service installation. For instance, if Dos Acequias has their sewer line in place prior to them paving the road, and Romero subdivision already has legal lots of record, we could therefore apply for for sewer permits, sewer service permits with the wastewater division, and we could get those sewer services installed for the Romeros prior to Los Aseques paving their road. What that does is it minimize any contractors involved from having to double handle dirt. We don't have to go ahead and cut into a freshly paved city roadway. So it would be a benefit if these two projects could come up together. However, we know it's difficult with two separate owners, two separate contractors, and sometimes it just doesn't happen that way, but we will do our best within reason. Let me read the rest of my notes here. I do believe that's it as far as drainage that I remember. If anybody else has any other questions, I'll still be here and I'm happy to answer any of them. With that, I'll go ahead and pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, I'll be to you in just a moment, but John Romero, City Traffic Engineer, could you come online for a minute?
Yes.
John, Mr. Pitts was suggesting that we need an additional traffic study. I assume you have an opinion about that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. You know, I definitely appreciate the concerns with adding traffic. You know, adding one car is adding traffic. The thing is when, or adding 10 cars is adding traffic. When looking at traffic, we're looking at capacity, basically at how long it takes people to maneuver through intersections. When you're looking at a subdivision as small as this, the impact it has on intersections is negligible. If you were to model it with or without the traffic, it's going to show a negligible change in the operation. Again, I can appreciate how adding subdivision after subdivision after subdivision has a cumulative effect. The thing that we consider with that cumulative effect is a couple of things. One, you know, this is infill development, but two, and I mentioned this before, you know, from a regional standpoint, what we've tried to do to accommodate this cumulative traffic, especially as it pertains to Agua Fria, we've made improvements such as the Siler Bridge crossing across Santa Fe River. That had a substantial effect, as can be expected, on Agua Fria. The 599 itself also has an effect on it. There is plans to make that at-grade intersection there as you go up the hill from Siler and Alameda, to make that into interchange, make that more attractive as far as a way for people to get to this part of town as opposed to coming through Agua Fria on a consistent basis. Other things we're doing is making trail improvements. Cerrillos Road is a major improvement that we've made thus far. We've gotten from the south side of town all the way to St. Michael's Drive. What we've done in that stretch of road is we've added auxiliary lanes, we've done access control, and that's allowed for a lot smoother of travel. We've also done signal timing on Cerrillos Road, which has really improved the operation of Cerrillos, causing more people to use Cerrillos than some of these side streets. The last segment of Cerrillos that has not been constructed yet is the portion from St. Michael's to St. Francis. The DOT is managing that project now, and it's currently in the preliminary stages of design. They're looking to begin construction of the first phase of that within the next, I would say, 3 to 5 years. So these are improvements I think that have been done and will continue to be done to help improve traffic flow in this area.
All right, thank you. Commissioners, questions to the applicants or staff? Raise your hand or forever hold your peace. I don't see any hands raised. Do you, Noah?
Mr. Chair, I do not see any hands raised.
All right. There is Commissioner Gutierrez.
Thank you. I couldn't find the raised hand fast enough, but I do have some questions.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Jane, the first Jane, said, and it might be somebody else, that an attorney sent a letter about the acequias. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, about the acequia. And Ms. Vigil, if you know about that letter and can add to it, that would be appreciative.
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Gutierrez, I'd like to say that our city engineer, Dee Beingessner, is here. And she might be able to speak to some of the issues related to drainage and the acequias. She's there on the lower screen. So, Dee,
All right, Dee, are you there? Would you unmute yourself and come on board and tell us what's going on?
Yes, Commissioner, I am here, but I don't know of any letter from a lawyer for the acequia.
Okay. Back to you, Dolores. Do you have any information?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, I am not aware of any letter either, and I haven't dealt directly with the acequias. So I'd like to maybe ask Eric if he has, working with those acequias, if he's heard anything. Thank you.
Eric?
I haven't heard anything in particular regarding this acequia on this project. As far as I know, we did our extensive studies and they were all accepted. So I would like to see this letter if it exists. This way we could go ahead and comment on it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Commissioner Gutierrez, back to you, sir.
Thank you. I guess maybe it wasn't sent out for sure by the applicant, and I guess that's fine with me. I don't know where it came from, but I wanted to hear a little bit more about it. But if they don't know, that's fine. Mr. Cornelius, on the drainage that you're sharing from Dos Acequias with the Romero property, what did you do? Do you have drawings to show us and the public what you did to keep the drainage above and beyond of what's required, like you stated?
Yes, that's all detailed in my terrain management report that was submitted alongside this preliminary plat submittal. That was reviewed or is in the process of being reviewed by Dee as well. We have talked on this, and I have clarified any issues that she has had, I believe, to her satisfaction. But just so you guys know, is we have coordinated this drainage with Dos Acequias. Dos Acequias is willing to accept the minimal amount of drainage that we have that would be flowing onto the street, and then afterwards it's going to be flowing back out into our pond. Additionally, we have planned rain gardens in the landscape buffer between the sidewalk and the curbing to help further mitigate any stormwater runoff. It's actually a beautification feature, landscape feature. It also helps with controlling the stormwater. So overall, it's a benefit.
Okay, I was just wondering if you had something that you could put on the screen and show us and just explain in simple, this is where it is today, and this is what we're doing in conjunction with Dos Acequias and the Romero property. Or I don't know if you.
I do believe I can share something. Give me I can share a portion of my drainage report. Now this report was done in 3 separate phases. So yes, I can go ahead and do that. And share. Okay, so what I'm going to show you is just 3 separate figures from my drainage report. And they're the existing conditions drainage basin map. So what you see on the screen is how the drainage basins are today, prior to Dos Acequias coming in. And what we have, just to orient everybody, is over on the right side of the screen here is Agua Fria Street. On the bottom, just off the map here, is where the Mandela School is at. And the Mandela School actually has a roadway that goes all the way along the boundary here and ties to Agua Fria. That roadway actually acts as a drainage boundary that doesn't allow any water to flow from this portion of the roadway onto this property here. It does flow over the road a little further down in this arroyo. However, that doesn't impact any portion of what you see on the screen here. So what I am showing here is the existing condition is I have 3 separate drainage basins, Q1 draining out onto Agua Fria, Q2 draining out onto this, there's a gravel roadway here that accesses a few houses, and then a very small portion, which is Q3, that drains out onto the acequia, the existing acequia in question. The next step of the modeling that we have to take into account is the pending adjacent construction. So this takes Dos Acequias construction into account. And what Dos Acequias does is, with the construction of Prudencio Street, that is actually acting as another drainage divide, further reducing the drainage areas for these basins that flow off-site here. So on Prudencio, there's a drainage divide right here that sends half this water down this way and the other half into these inlets, storm sewer, into the pond, and then ultimately out onto Agua Fria Street. This results in a substantial reduction in stormwater runoff. And then we're left with what's left on the Romero portion, which is substantially smaller as well. And then the next step is the developed conditions. This takes into account all of the proposed improvements we have. And they're all modeled the exact same way of how much water is flowing out onto Agua Fria, how much water is flowing out onto to the west onto this adjacent roadway here, and how much water is flowing into, into the acequia. So overall, there is a reduction that is shown once you get into the meat and potatoes of this report. It is shown that there will be a reduction, although we are adding area to these basins in the developed condition. We're also slowing it down with the construction of this pond right here. That's where pond routing comes from to go ahead and slow this water down. So that is detailed in the report. Probably don't have, probably don't want to get too far into that. We can, unless you guys want to get deep into the engineering on this. This report is about 100 pages. So.
No, we don't have time for 100 pages. That was a nice summary. Thank you. So on this page that we're on now, Agua Fria, you said that there's only going to be 1 or 2 lots that are going to be draining onto Agua Fria. So that's the existing house and lot number 2 that are going to head north towards Agua Fria.
It's actually lot 2 and a portion of lot 3. Lot 1 always has drained to Agua Fria and does in the existing condition, does in the proposed condition. Therefore, it results in a net zero change calculated at this point.
Okay, and over here on QD4, is that there's the red line with the marks, and then is that the acequia that's going to be backing up to Osito Place?
The acequia is actually up here in the top left corner of the page. So our project limits actually do not even touch the acequia. They go to the bank of the acequia and stop. So this pond is entirely within the overbank of the acequia.
Okay, and just if you can answer this in a simple way, do you have the figures of when the acequia ran before as to after all of this is completed?
I do not have that tonight. That is actually detailed. Since we're not impacting or developing across the acequia, the drainage analysis for the Romero project did not need us to model the entire acequia. However, we did model the entire acequia as part of the Dos Acequias subdivision, and the drainage basin on that is substantial. It actually goes all the way up east across St. Francis Drive and into Rail Yard Park.
Okay. That answers my questions on that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
If I may continue, Mr. Chair?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Let me see here. This is for Mr. Romero and Ms. Vigil. We were looking at this, and condition number 2 states that all traffic entrance and exits are to be done through Prudencio. what is your alternative plans if for some reason Dos Acequias never comes to fruition?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, we haven't thought that through, but actually before, when I first saw this project, I thought that maybe we would have an easement running from the west side of the property onto Agua Fria, and then all the utilities would be placed underground in that easement. But because Dos Acequias is coming to fruition, I mean, it is approved, and I hope that they'll be breaking ground soon. That's why the tie-in would make more sense to do it that way.
Thank you. Mr. Logston, if Dos Acequias, if the Romeros go through faster, or something happens with Dos Acequias, does that throw a wrench in everything we're doing tonight because of that condition? Number two, that the access is through Prudencia?
Mr. Commissioner, I don't know how to answer that exactly. The two developers are definitely coordinating. I don't think it affects the approval you would give tonight. I think the net effect, if Prudencio never comes to be, as Dolores just alluded to, they basically have to redesign their subdivision, and it would become a different and new approval, kind of nullifying the old one. If Prudencio delays, presumably for all the reasons we've heard tonight from the applicant and the engineer on the economy of tying into utilities and all that, if Prudencio doesn't come to be for another year, my assumption is that the applicant would just sit tight and wait for that time, because it's going to be the thing that's most cost effective for them. But the basic answer to your question, no, I don't think that it affects the decision you're making tonight, because an alternative, either, the alternatives are delay or an entirely different project that would nullify this.
That answered my question. Thank you. And you agree with what he says, Mr. Hill, Mr. Romero, if Dos Acequias does slow down for some reason, you guys are willing to sit and wait it out, or are you in a hurry to get it done?
Which Romero are you talking to? John, the city engineer?
No,
or
Mr. Romero, the
applicant.
and Ms.
The
Vigil.
applicant, okay.
Yeah, the applicant and Ms. Vigil. And did you hear my question?
Chris? Yes, Chris,
Thank you.
you want to address that?
Let me see if am I unmuted there?
Yeah, we got you.
Yeah, and I would be willing to delay the progress if for some reason Dos Acequias got delayed as well. I thought that Eric covered it very well, that trying to coordinate with them so that we don't have to recut the asphalt when we put in the utilities, and have that kind of go in as a coordinated effect. It's, in moving some of the dirt around, and the plan is in cooperation with, trying to get these timelines aligned. If it did fail or become nullified, I think my brother and I would continue. But if that were the case, then as Lee was saying, we would probably have to resubmit some additional plans, and as Dolores indicated, maybe trench and use the easement to put the utilities underground to begin with.
Thank you for that answer. It just with that condition kind of puts a little bit of time to your hands. And for the benefit of the neighborhood, I know that if you guys are ready to hit the ground running when Dos Acequias are and do things in conjunction, it would probably be to the benefit of everybody. Mr. Chair, I'll yield the floor for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, I don't see any other hands raised. Are we ready to entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion, Commissioner Clow.
Commissioner Clow.
I move that we approve the preliminary subdivision for case number 20-250, subject to the conditions of approval and technical corrections recommended by staff.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Commissioner Lawrence seconded. Marissa, will you poll the commission, please?
Yes, Commissioner Clow,
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Satania.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. And now I'll entertain a motion. Commissioner Clow on the findings.
Thank you.
Yes, I move we approve the findings of facts and conclusions of law for case number 2020-250, which is attached as Exhibit A2.
You say 250, but I know you mean 2,500.
2,500, yes.
Okay. Commissioner Lawrence, do you second?
Second.
Melissa?
Yes. Commissioner Clow,
Yes.
Commissioner Gutierrez,
Yes.
Commissioner Lawrence,
Yes.
Commissioner Satania.
Yes.
The motion has been approved.
Thank you. Ms. Vihil, thank you very much for your presentation. Mr. Romero, Eric, everyone, thank you very much. Good
Have a
luck.
good evening. Stay safe.
Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen that submitted comments from the public, thank you for participating. We appreciate your comments every time and hope that we answered your questions. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we'll move on to the next item of business, which is staff communications. Carlos, are you here?
I am, Chair.
All right. Well, we don't have to swear you in, so knock yourself out.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen over here. Can you all see that?
Yes, sir.
Great. So I'm working on a big state-required infrastructure plan that justifies the collection and use of impact fees. And there's a comparatively tiny portion that's going to come before the Planning Commission for a recommendation. But before I bring this plan forward and ask you to approve it, I wanted to talk briefly about what the plan is, what is not up for review, and get a bit more of a sense for what you all might feel comfortable moving forward with, or what kind of information you might need before I bring the plan forward. So to start out, impact fees developed out of a problem, which was that new growth doesn't pay for new infrastructure. It doesn't pay for that infrastructure when it first comes in, and it takes a long time to actually pay for that. So the solution was to try to make new development pay for itself. So at the City of Santa Fe, we assess 4 different kinds of impact fees. We've got roads, parks, fire, and police. If you look at this table that I'm sharing over here, it's a whole table. You don't need to understand all of this, but basically when single family detached dwelling units come in, we assess them based on size. We assess them a certain amount of impact fees. It's an accessory dwelling unit, multifamily dwelling unit, non-residential commercial, all of this stuff we kind of put into some of these boxes and figure out what we should be charging for it. This is very limited, the ways that we're able to use impact fees. We need state permission, and in a lot of states like New Mexico, they're very strict about how we could collect impact fees, what we can and cannot charge, how we could use them. The state makes sure that we justify their need in collection. And similarly, we can't just collect all these different fees and sit on it like a piggy bank. We have to actually be actively using these fees. Questions about what impact fees are, or I could keep kind of going through and take some questions later. Any appetite yet?
Let's see if there's any questions. I don't see any. Go ahead.
All right. So the impact fee capital improvement plan, it says it's a plan, and it kind of is a plan. The best way to think about this is actually as a formula. That's really the basis of this entire plan, is it is a formula that is laid out by the state. The state says how we have to calculate this formula, and so we have to take a bunch of data and kind of bring that in. This plan justifies the collection of impact fees. There's not a lot of review and details that the Planning Commission is going to be getting into. It calculates the maximum amount of impact fees that we could charge. It establishes a list of potentially eligible funds. And if we get into the details of it, to me, I really think that some of the details are kind of this promise that the city is creating with the community. We could kind of skip over that for now. A really key point is that this plan doesn't actually establish or prioritize what, how, or where we spend money. That is a political process. That's a process up to staff. This does not impact any of that. So if we're concerned about where we're spending money or about what infrastructure we're choosing, this isn't the plan to really talk about. Hypothetically, we could change this plan to do that. It's not what it is right now. We also can't use this plan to encourage or discourage particular types of development. So if we say that we want to have more retail space in Santa Fe, so we want to lower the impact fees, the city would actually be required to pay that difference in impact fees. So again, think of this as a state outlined formula. The plan is, again, essentially a big set of lists and numbers, and I can share these with you. We could talk about some of these. I'm not going to, because I don't think that's going to be important to the Planning Commission review, but I just want you to see this is kind of what my screen is cluttered with kind of every day, is I'm looking at the inventory for parks. I'm trying to figure out what the different eligible road improvements might be. I'm trying to lay out what some of the trends have been in residential and non-residential development. We're trying to do a bunch of these different calculations, get this data for the state required calculations. That's what it basically is. Again, we don't have to get too much into these details. There's kind of 3 stages of approval of this plan. The first one is the Capital Improvements Advisory Committee. That one, your chair, Jack Hyatt, is also the chair of that committee. That committee is primarily a group, the majority is experienced in development, law, and finance. That group is the one that is actually looking at the details. That group is going to be looking to ensure that the city is following legal practices, that we're following financial practices. The CIAC is going to come up with a recommended plan, a recommended quantity of fees, and we'll be kind of approving and reviewing the general concept. When the plan comes to the Planning Commission, it's actually only coming to the Planning Commission because we have to change Chapter 14. Now, you know, the Planning Commission can say, we want to have more, we want to kind of learn more about this impact fees and what the calculations are. But essentially, we're just asking the Planning Commission to recommend the plan that the CIAC has already reviewed, and then we pass that on to the governing body, and the governing body does kind of the same thing. The governing body is looking at details and general concepts and eligible projects, things like that. Eligible projects, how we're making the calculations, how we're adding new fees, not really under the Planning Commission jurisdiction. Again, we could, if any of you wanted to push for that, you know, we could have a conversation, but generally not. So what's not part of the Planning Commission, again, is kind of how we collect and how we use the state calculation to get these fees. I want to show these 2 tables. This table here, table 2, is what in 2014 we decided the maximum amount of fees that we could collect. The total cost of development for roads, parks, fire, and police were these amounts. And so if we look, the average of single family detached, we were saying that the cost to roads, parks, police, and fire is $4,912. And again, that is that state outlined formula. That's the formula that I'm working on. That's the formula that we're bringing the contractor to work on. When the Planning Commission goes through this, one of the real sources of their decisions is going to be, what do we want to set the fees at? Do we want to reduce the fees at all? In at various points of time, we've said around 2008, 2009, 2012, we've said we don't want to charge a lot of fees because we're not getting a lot of development. Later on, we've said we want to bump fees up. The city can kind of choose where to have that great number, but really what the Planning Commission is going to be able to review is when we ask to approve these numbers, what is that, is it going to be 70% of the maximum fees? Is it going to be 50%? Is it going to be 90, 100%? That is a political process that is purely what does the CIAC, then the Planning Commission, then the governing body, what do those bodies want to charge?
Recommend.
To recommend, right. Eventually the governing body is going to figure out what we actually want to charge. Again, it could be up to 100% of the maximum amount of fees that we calculate, but the political process is what do we actually want to set those at. So kind of considering this, what I wanted to kind of do here was just figure out what does the Planning Commission want to see before or at the time that I bring this forward. And again, the CIAC will be reviewing details. The CIAC is going to come up with a number that they recommend. That's going to come to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission will make a similar recommendation. We go to the governing body. So that's it. I'm here for questions, and I'm here to kind of figure out what planning commissioners might want to see before or during that eventual ask.
All right, if you take that off the screen, then I can see the commissioners, please. Commissioners, I see Commissioner Satania. Would you like to ask some questions, sir?
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I know you're speaking at a high level right now, but I'd be interested to hear your explanation of the formula that's actually being used. We just kind of moved quickly through that, and that's really the major piece of this, and where you're pulling all the levers and in terms of making it work and getting, to propose percentages. So can you briefly review that formula with the commission, please?
Absolutely. So Commissioner Satania, so what we basically do is we put together a list of all of the capital facilities and equipment that let's take fire, for example. So fire has the fire stations. So we're going to value what those fire stations are. Then they also have all of the different fire trucks and different equipment that they use for fire. It has to be over $10,000. It has to have a lifespan of over 10 years. So we take all those different things and we create a valuation. Parks was the last one we worked on, came up with something like $222 million in parks. Then we try to figure out what the service area is. So let's say that the fire department is $100 million and we've got we have we've got 1 million people there. We just do more or less a division to figure out how much are people actually using the fire department services, and how can we kind of create a unit of development. So we figure out what is the cost on that system for a single family home that's large, for a single family home that's small, for multifamily, for commercial. What is the use on that system for industrial? And all of those get kind of different numbers. A good way to think of that is like vehicle miles traveled. So for the road system, we know that different types of development have different VMT, different vehicle miles traveled. So industrial has a higher level of VMT than commercial. And so we just take all of these different kind of calculations to figure out what is the taxation, what is the use on this whole entire system, divide that by the whole valuation of the system, and then we're able to figure out that each additional home would cost X amount of money to provide the same level of services as what we're already providing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I appreciate the additional comments.
Is that it, Commissioner?
Yes.
All right, Commissioner Lawrence.
So I think part of my question was similar to Commissioner Satania's, so I appreciate that. And I also want to say, you asked Carlos about the amount of information that we might want as commissioners. And I would say that at this point, not having looked at this sort of plan before, I would like as much background information within the packet or reading in advance that we can do as you can possibly give us, so we can understand the formulas, what the previous committee has come up with, and so we can see all of that and really understand it before it comes for our review. I also am not sure yet that I have a very clear idea of what exactly it is that we are being asked to review or recommend, if it is just reviewing the previous committee's work, or if we have a specific, and specifically as it affects changes to Chapter 14, or if we have other changes as part of our review that are part of that task.
Yeah, I think that's a great clarifying question. I can absolutely give background information. I could send the 2014 plan to all of you if you'd like to see that. Again, you could read it, you could not read it, you could get into it, you could ask me questions, you could, whatever level you want to engage with. So I'll send that plan out to each of the commissioners, and you can review kind of what we did in 2014. And that does have some of the formulas, the calculations, the inventories, et cetera. I'm sorry, the second part of that.
The second part of that was really better definition. What I'm seeking is better definition of what the task of the Planning Commission is here.
Right. So it's going to be a proposed ordinance. So we're going to change Chapter 14. So right now, Chapter 14 says that the single family detached impact fees for a structure 1,500 to 2,000 square feet is $3,303, right? And so that's in Chapter 14. That's our ordinance. Now we're going to change that number from 3,303 to some other number. And when we change that number, we're going to have to bring forward an ordinance, and the Planning Commission will review the proposed changes. Is that clear there?
Thank you. That helps.
But
If I could jump in.
Okay, go ahead. Eli, please.
Sorry to interrupt, Chair Hyatt. We recently updated the land use fees. It came to this body, I believe, in August, and just a quick update. It was those fee changes were adopted by the governing body last night, and so the process for changing the impact fees will be very similar to what we did when we amended the overall land use fee table recently. So that's the type of thing I think we're anticipating.
So we're not going to do, Carlos and Eli, if I've done it wrong. I thought we were just going to do a percentage, but we're going to have to get further down in the weeds than that, aren't we?
Well, I mean, in the end, I mean, the CIAC is going to review the plan itself, the details, the meat and potatoes of the plan, and then make a recommendation on both the plan and a percentage. What's going to come to the Planning Commission is really just going to be a percentage and a number, which is different than the old percentage and a number. So
or it could be the same. Or it could be the same.
It could be the same, right? I'm almost positive it won't be the same because all the calculations are changing. But it could be very similar. It could be somewhat different. The CIAC is going to make some decisions on that. We can absolutely bring some background on what those decisions will be, or on some of the conversation and the rationale behind why the CIAC decided that number, that reduction percentage. But yeah, for the Planning Commission's review, it's really going to be, a recommendation from the Citizen Advisory Committee about the percentage of reduction and what those final fees will be. and the planning commission has the ability to recommend changes to that.
Let me clarify one more time. If the current reduction is 70%, that's the number that's targeted right now. Is the planning commission going to recommend a single percentage that's going to apply up and down to all of those categories? Or are the planning commissioners going to have to look at each one of those categories and recommend a different percentage?
Thank you, Chair Hyatt. Great question. So we're only able to apply 1% across the board. And so that's again where we can't actually get into decisions about how we want more housing, or we want less industrial, or we want more office space. We can't actually get that detailed.
I see.
All this plan allows is that we apply either 100% of the impact fees, or we give some type of reduction across the board with this plan.
Got it.
So it is only one number.
All right, good. So I think it would be helpful to have all the commissioners see the previous report. Hopefully none of us will get bogged down in the details too much, but just to help commissioners understand CIAC, we generally meet 3, 4, 5 times a year, and the staff of the various departments come forward and they say, we need a new fire station over here on South Meadows. And they explain why, and they go through the routine of explaining the numbers and so on and so forth. 9 times out of 10, we approve those things, and it goes on to the governing body for approval. This is the first time we've burrowed down this far since 2014. So it's going to be, I think, a substantial amount of work for the CIAC, and hopefully you'll get a good product that will make plenty of sense. But that's how we operate. And any of you that would like to be on this committee, there's a chair that would love to have one of you serve. I don't see any hands raised.
I have a question,
Okay.
or I have a comment. I'd like summaries, so I'd like to see, basically, I'm assuming the fees are going to go up and not down, and why, and the effect on construction, and the need for it in terms of the cost of fire and parks and other things that these funds can be used for, I'm sure have gone up. So just the rationale why it should be increased, and sort of the analysis of why that percentage and the effect on construction.
You can do that. Carlos?
We can.
All right. Any other comments?
And I will say really quickly, Commissioner Clow, we do have a report looking at past impact fee reductions and increases. However, I think it's from 2015, and we paid a pretty sizable chunk of money to the contractor to perform that for us. I might be able to get something similar or some other understanding of where that is based on the last 5 years. I will say that generally that report said that, again, as of 2015, that changing impact fees didn't have a significant, a statistically significant effect on development, whether we're looking at Florida, California, different areas of New Mexico, different years, et cetera. So that might be what we find again, but I'll try to get as much information as I can.
All right.
Thank you.
Tanya, let me just ask before I recognize you. Carlos, what's our timetable?
My timetable for this plan is as quick as possible. Oh, are you asking a timetable for comments from planning commissioners now?
No. We have to get to the governing body, I think before December 31st, is it, or what?
I'm trying to take this to the last governing body meeting December 9th. However, that might be, it might be procedurally impossible. So I still have to kind of investigate that, but we are trying to work as quick as possible to actually get that plan moving forward, which is again why I'm trying to introduce this now rather than have delays down the road.
All right.
But that's just due to a variety of different state requirements.
All right, Commissioner Satania.
Yeah, I would just like to second Commissioner Clow's request for summaries. I think obviously it's important that the role we play as the Planning Commission is to review and make recommendations to the governing body, specifically to, you know, changes made to the Chapter 14. But I feel like for me personally, I want to understand the recommendations that are being made by the CIAC to a certain level to feel like I'm diligently, you know, fulfilling our duties as a commissioner. So I just wanted to make sure to make a comment about that.
All right, Carlos, will you get that out to us as quickly as possible? Thank you. Also, Carlos, while I've got you here, I have misplaced those minutes from last year when the chairman died. Would you send those to me again, please?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you. Any more questions, commissioners? All right, Carlos, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And any other matters from the commission? Any other matters from staff?
Mr. Chair, I think Eli wants to speak also, and I definitely just wanted to share something with you guys that Lou Logston and myself and Eli put together, kind of where we're at in terms of housing in Santa Fe. And this map's a lot to look at, but I do want to show it to you. I think it's a useful tool. I can send it to you on the side. This is kind of what, in a nutshell, we're looking at in terms of housing in Santa Fe right now and entitlements. We've broken this down into what's been approved, what's approved and under review, and what's under construction. I think this is an important number right here, this under construction number. And it illustrates how growth is not in just one area of the city, as many of you may just think, because some areas of the city have more local residents. Some areas of the city feel that they're getting more growth, and there is more growth in some areas. There's no doubt about that. But there is growth in all areas. And that's, I think, important to do. And this is divided into council districts. I think this is a product of over the last 2 to 3 years, what's coming along. I will say this much, we are definitely not at where we need to be in terms of affordable housing. We definitely need more affordable housing. We have a lot of market rate housing. And I think that, you know, some of this may come to light, but this is an updated map. Didn't include anything that we heard tonight, but it will include that stuff. And it kind of illustrates, you know, and when I say under construction, I mean the building permits have been pulled. They passed the entitlement phase, they've got the building permits. And then when I say board approved, that means they haven't actually recorded their plat necessarily. So they haven't recorded. And then another interesting thing about this is that in terms of multifamily versus single family, we have somewhere in the ballpark of 1,800. I think maybe I'm underestimating that. I think we have somewhere in the lines of 1,700 multifamily units being built, and the rest are single family. So this is in essence, and Carlos has been compiling a bunch of statistics with the CIAC and for that report that he spoke of that talks about growth projections and whatnot. This is the busiest year that the city has ever seen that we were able to track records on. We're busy. Construction is going and it's not slowing down. So we have full days every day, and I just wanted to share this with you guys all. We have broken this down so it's not as many items, but I think it's a good benchmark to see how Santa Fe is growing and where it's growing and what kind of growth it's experiencing. Out of all of these units, I think there was about 200 affordable units. So when you look at a number that's like 1,961 units, 200 of those is only affordable. And the rest are market rate. And that's in large part to, what the market is demanding and how performance pencil out in terms of T in lieu of versus actually building it. So I just wanted to share this with you guys. And if you do want a copy of this, please email me. I'd be happy to send you a copy.
I think you should email all the commissioners. I think we'll all want one of those.
Yeah, definitely.
And I also want to say, Noah, thank you. Eli, thank you. Carlos, thank you. It's helpful to us at least to take a snapshot from time to time to I mean, for me, it's just an appreciation for what we do, and it makes me feel better. I think Noah's point about the affordable housing, just, you know, we're not doing the job, you know, and I don't know quite how to do that. I know that there are 1,200 building lots in Tierra Contenta that we are working very hard on getting that whole project going. So since I also happen to be president of the board of directors of Tierra Contenta, I'll go out there and do my best tomorrow and see if I can kick somebody's tail and get that thing going, because that's where we can really do some inroad with affordable housing. Thank you, Noah, for that. Anything else?
And Chair, one more thing, just since you brought up that Tierra Contenta, there is a case regarding Tierra Contenta on the next agenda.
Yeah.
I would like it if you guys can all email me or let me know now if you're going to be able to attend that meeting, because if you're not going to be able to attend that, Chair, because you'll have to recuse yourself because you're the board president, then I will need to make sure that we have a quorum present. I did talk to Pilar, and she had a family emergency and she apologized for not being able to attend tonight's meeting, but she plans on being at that meeting at our next meeting.
All right, Melissa, will you note that Commissioner Faulkner was excused, please?
Can we confirm now?
Yeah, let's just do that. Commissioner Satania?
I will be present.
Commissioner Clow?
Yes, I'll be here.
Commissioner Lawrence?
I will be here.
Commissioner Gutierrez?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, I'll look at the agenda to see whether or not I need to be there for any other part of the meeting. I'll talk to Commissioner Hogan and let him know that he's on tap. I haven't looked at it yet to see what the topic is. Who's the applicant in that, please, Noah?
Yes, Chair, and for commissioners, the applicant for that is going to be Alexander Zurich for Autotroph. I think he's representing the owner, which I believe may be Rob Gibbs. I could be wrong. The other items on that night is going to be the short-term rental ordinance amendments, as well as the case that was postponed tonight.
Okay.
The agenda has been published. So I know the short-term rentals will be the first item on the agenda. And then we'll go, and that will probably have public comment and whatnot. So, and then so this case for Tierra Contenta, which is multifamily, will be the last item.
All right, that makes sense. Did somebody else have a comment, commissioners? I don't, oh, no. Director Isaacson.
Thank you, Chair. Just to add a little bit to what Noah was talking about. I mean, I think we also, when we talk about affordable housing, we can't only talk about the number of units under construction, but we also have to talk about the amount of money in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think last time I spoke with Alexandra Ladd, our Affordable Housing Coordinator, Director, I believe we have over $900,000 in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, almost $1 million. It may well be over $1 million now. And so, you know, a lot of what we do here in these meetings, even though some of these projects don't contain an affordable component, they are contributing to that trust fund and are making affordable housing more likely and easier to provide here in Santa Fe. So I think that that's an important consideration to keep in mind. I spoke a little bit earlier, just as an update, we did pass the updated land use fees. We're anticipating roughly, those will go into effect January 1st, and we're anticipating seeing roughly $500,000 a year in additional revenues to the city through the application of those fees. We hope that that will then allow the land use department to hire additional staff so that we can provide better customer service and more timely responses to our constituents. So that's a major step forward for the land use department, and we're very excited to see that that's been approved and adopted. I think Noah alluded to our next planning commission meeting, which will be October 15th, 2 weeks from this evening. I think we are also, just to forecast the rest of the year, I think we're going to continue to be extremely busy, both in Planning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Historic Preservation, Historic Districts Review Board. So I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a heads up on that, because I know towards the end of the year, people start making plans for travel around holidays and things like that. So as you start to know whether or not you'll be available in later November and later December, please let us know so that we can organize our agendas accordingly. And then Noah also mentioned that we do have the short-term rental ordinance that came to us, I believe, in July or early August, has been redrafted with a lot of work by Assistant City Attorney Sally Paez and myself, Jen Fabian, and obviously our legislative sponsors, Mayor Weber, Councilors Lindell, Villarreal, and Romero Worth. And so that will be coming back next week, next meeting, October 15th. And we hope to start routing that through the governing body committee process, and ideally try to get that up for a public hearing by the end of the year, and if not by the end of the year, early next year. So, and then something else is, we will start in the coming weeks, just internally with staff, starting to think about what our legislative calendar looks like for, calendar year 21, so that we can start making some plans about how to schedule text amendments, other code changes, as well as new ordinances as they apply to land use and the land use code. So that's just a quick little preview. If you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, we can move on with the agenda.
I presume since you didn't say anything about a new member, we don't have any information about a new member.
Not at the moment. However, Sally and I were able to meet with the mayor and the city manager, and we are in the process of going through an announcement to the community, letting them know about the existing vacancy, and try to fill that vacant position on Planning Commission, as well as vacant positions on Board of Adjustment and the CIAC that Carlos spoke about earlier this evening. So we are making progress on filling these vacancies. However, we do not have anyone identified at this time.
Thank you. Commissioners, any matters from any of you? Commissioner Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank staff. It was nice seeing that presentation that they put up of what's happening, and going to send it out to us through the city. I'd also like to thank Director Isaacson for reminding us that there is money in the trust fund, so we don't feel so beat up with this affordable housing. And the last thing I'd like is, Noah, if you can send me an email when the packets are posted online. So I know that I said I wanted them digitally, but I just would like to know when they're there so I can start looking.
Thank you. Anyone else? I don't know. Do I have everybody on screen? 1, 2, 3. Am I missing somebody? Well, anyhow, I don't see any hands raised. All right. Seeing nothing else, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Night,
Good.
everybody.